And providing more analysis, we're joined by Dr. Olga Krasniak. Dr. Olga, a very good day, a professor of international relations at National University from Moscow. It's a pleasure to have you and a very warm welcome on the program. How might the upcoming dialogue between Trump and Putin influence the trajectory of the war from the Russian perspective?
Well, indeed. So this upcoming meeting, or at least it was announced, some preparations, diplomatic preparations are in place. Probably would have some impact on the tactics towards the continuation of this war in Ukraine. But if we look from this strategic approach, from a more wider perspective, maybe we will see something different. Because of economic sanctions, so we see the European Union was not a beneficiary from these economic sanctions, but the United States, this country, the most benefited from the sanctions. Why? Because it started to sell energy resources to Europe. So, and in this case, from the strategic perspective, the United States has already achieved certain preferences. But from the tactical perspective, probably there is no need to continue this conflict from the side of the United States, and there is no need maybe to supply more weapons to Ukraine. So, and in this case, yes, I believe the United States, they would be interested maybe to stop supplying Ukraine with weapons and somehow just stopping this conflict. But at the same time, they've been already achieved like a more strategic goals, and they have more benefits, economic benefits when sanctioning Russia.
Okay, great. You mentioned here in your context and your answer the sanctions, of course, which you meant, of course, are imposed on Russia by the United States. How can you see, or what's your narrative on these sanctions, and how can these sanctions be removed as soon as possible for the sake of Russia, of course? Do you think after the war ends, or before the war ends, or when, as you mentioned, of course, the sanctions, the economic sanctions, as you mentioned?
Well, the most important part, I believe, that the United States is not going to lift the sanctions. They're not going to cancel any sanctions, maybe some of them, but the majority against the Russian financial sector and against Russian energy sector, I do not believe these sanctions will be canceled. Well, because just putting away Russia from this geopolitics and from this global economy, it's something what strengthens American economy. So this bigger picture from this perspective should be seen, I believe. So what we see, so what would be implications for Russia? Russia cannot cancel sanctions against itself. Russia cannot impact the United States. But what Russia can do is that Russia is doing is building new financial platforms. For instance, within the BRICS countries. So we have World Bank, which is controlled by the United States, and Russia initiates the BRICS Bank. So the United States
exactly. I was just going to ask you about the BRICS when you finish your answer. And of course, the importance of the BRICS, which we also know that US-elect Donald Trump does not want the BRICS.
But BRICS still, it's a part of these geopolitical changes. So it's not about the BRICS itself. Well, it's about building new financial institutions, building
exactly.
new mechanisms. So, and in this case, we see it's a part of this geopolitical change in which this war in Ukraine, it's just only the smaller part of this. Of course, it's important. And unfortunately, it impacts negatively many people's lives. So, but at the same time, we just cannot look at the war in Ukraine apart from these BRICS changes, apart of these sanctions policies, because it's part of this geopolitical shift. And what Russia is doing now, so once again, Russia cannot cancel the sanctions, but Russia is creating new alternative platforms. And Russia suggests new financial and economic mechanisms, which can be an alternative to dollar. It's an alternative to Western.
That's the point here that you nailed it, Professor. US President-elect Donald Trump does not want anything that's alternative to the dollar.
Exactly, because dollar and the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, those are instruments of American dominance, geopolitical, geoeconomic dominance, and of course the United States do not want to lose its position, and so that is why. But for Russia, it is the only way. It's only a possible way, and Russia is capable of doing in providing and just bringing and. A new this platform this type of platforms, and Russia is doing this, but still it's big changes. But getting back to the United States, we need to understand one important thing. So the United States considers Russia as well as China as geopolitical competitors, and they will do everything just to contain Russia and to contain China economically, militarily, or financially, or in any different way.
The
And
BRICS is going to do anything to contain China and the other countries, right?
well, in case of China, so it would be the continuation of Trump previous administration. It's economic wars. It's a war on tariffs and
Yes.
all these tools which the United States can use. So they have it. So and in this case, Russia is on the position as a competitor, geopolitical competitor, and of course using financial, economic, or military tools. It's something what the United States will do it. So will continue its policies. So and getting back to Ukraine, well, I think the United States have already achieved its goal to supply European countries with its own gas instead of Russian gas, while the United States have already benefited from this conflict. And now maybe it's time to reconsider the tactics, but the strategy of the United States, it's unchangeable.
Professor Olga, what specific security agreements does Putin seek to ensure Ukraine never joins NATO? And from your own narrative, why?
It's about so what exactly will be an agreement? So we don't know for sure because it's something goes within this traditional diplomacy, and I believe maybe some diplomatic negotiations which are happening behind closed doors. So they're happening probably, but we will know, and we will know maybe in the coming weeks, or maybe in the coming months. But definitely, it's not Ukraine that will be having a voice to do something. It will be the United States, and it would be Russia who would be, bargaining of all these conditions of ending this conflict. But still, ending this conflict, it's not about Ukrainian interests. It's about this geopolitical competition. But definitely, it's not in Russian interest of the Ukraine being a part of NATO. So definitely, we can count on this. And so the neutral status of Ukraine. So definitely, it would be on the list. And all these territories which Russia is controlling now, so it would be remained by Russian territory. So it's still on the list as well. But maybe some additional points will be added. So we will see.
Let's wait and see. Joining us from California, and a very warm welcome, is Dr. Ashraf Singer, an international relations expert. Welcome to the show, sir. Sir, what are the primary goals? Thank you, sir. What are the primary goals for both Trump and Putin in this upcoming meeting, and how do you read this upcoming meeting, sir? Are you optimistic about? Do you think they're going to reach a deal? Do you think anything is going to be objective about this meeting?
Of course not. That Ukraine-Russia war, it's still moving towards the attrition war, unfortunately. Even after Trump, or even after Trump and Putin, will gonna to meet each other, like in common future. Till now, we don't have a specific date. This is the first thing. You know why? Because the number of member of the U.S. Congress, particularly some of the Republican, will join, the Democrat and approve, fund to Ukraine. So it's not about, what really Trump desire. It depends what the U.S. interest, will get from that war. So it seems to me like that war is ongoing. Unfortunately, for coming future, it's ongoing. This is first. Second, Trump, of course, and that warm relationship with Putin will help to I would say, postpone any discussion of using nuclear weapons or exchanging nuclear weapons in Ukraine. This is actually what really I'm really optimistic that Putin and Trump, they will really agreed on that point, and it's really a very essential point.
Dr. Ashraf,
For
okay, go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sorry.
No, actually, I need just to bring China to that analysis.
Of course.
So Trump really need Russia, need Putin to bring Russia back again to be part of Europe, part of the U.S., not really be part of China.
Okay,
So this
sir,
is
from
like
your
the
answer here, can I ask you a question here? This is going to
sure.
be a counterattack from the United States and another counterattack from Russia or from Putin and Donald Trump, because now, of course, there is international problems or problems between China and the United States on after
Mm.
President-elect Donald Trump, of course, took office or is taking office in 6 days, and of course, Putin probably is going to take advantage of this.
I agree with you in terms of the counter attack.
Exactly.
So China does need to keep Putin in his, aside. But Trump and I would say the U.S. now, they are seeing some benefit of Trump being a U.S. president in coming days. So they need Trump to improve that relationship with Putin. In terms of the long-term strategy, what really the United States really think exactly about Russia. So I would like to give you like very simple equations in very simple words. So the GDP of Russia is 2.5 trillion. The GDP of Europe, 17 trillion dollars. United States is 27 trillions. So in that case, Russia is not really a threat to the US and Europe. This is for GDP, for the economy, for the
Gross
budget,
domestic product, sir.
yeah, the
Gross
defense
domestic product.
budget. Yes, correct. Defense budget. Russia is about 100 billions dollars. United States is 900, so 9 times of Russia. So, in that case, in terms of the attrition or war of attrition between Ukraine and Russia, the long-term strategy that Biden now transfer Ukraine as a case to the NATO. So NATO now will be involved in that war. And if you count number of NATO's, of the member of NATO, plus United States, you are talking about, like 1 trillion 0.4, in dollars in terms of the defense budget. This is really big. So these guys is like 14 times of Russia. So this is really big. So the long-term strategy, Russia, of course, will not be a threat, but they need really to bring Russia after, okay, this was your dream, Mr. Putin, do it. And if you failed, we're gonna to take care of the new policy of bring Russia to be part of Europe, not part of China, for the next, I would say, move of United States in terms of containing China, because China is really threats to United States domination, not Russia. And I think that Trump uh, will not be unhappy, will be happy if any country really develop its relation with Russia in terms of the nuclear energy or in business. But probably Trump needs to really cool down that kind of relationship, or that escalation or that type of escalation between Russia and the West or Russia and United States.
Professor Singer, considering that Donald Trump said during his campaign or claimed during his campaign that in 24 hours he will end the Ukraine-Russian war, which means that he doesn't want a war on this level. And of course, how might the results of Trump-Putin meeting impact Russia's relations with European countries?
Thank you for that question. This
You're
is
welcome,
very
sir.
great.
Which questions could I ask two questions together?
Thank you. It depends on the condition of peace. Who really gonna to introduce his conditions? Trump or Putin or NATO or Congress or the U.S. Congress? So it's a very vague. You cannot really identify if that meeting in 24 hours. That war between Ukraine and Russia. Of course, I like that war should be stopped because, that the consequences of that war, really hurt, many countries in the Middle East and Africa and Asia and Europe, of course. But my concern actually, that Trump, he did say many good things, in his
Yes,
in his campaign.
Yes, sir.
But what I heard this week, that the 24 hours moved now to be 6 months. So now, if it's really moved to 6 months, means it's gonna to move to like another year or 2 years. I'm not really, optimistic to see that war really end soon, because Biden, before his end of his presidency, or his ending of his presidency, he approved, $6 billion
Yes, I know, sir. Yes, we all
to
know.
Ukraine. Means that he already did full Ukraine for another 2 years, to keep on going in that war.
Okay, I move on now to Professor Olga. How does Putin's willingness to engage in talks without preconditions reflect Russia's stance towards Western nations? And of course, if you want to comment on anything that Professor Ashraf Singer said, it is your right to.
Well, indeed. So Russia would not accept any preconditions because since the beginning of this conflict in Ukraine, Russia was open to peace talks. Just only one condition on Russia's conditions, on the conditions which would be acceptable and would consider Russia's interests. And Russia's interests have been they're known, and they've been announced many times. So, and in this case, of course, here's no preconditions because, like I said, Russia's position is very clear, and I believe Donald Trump and his people, they already know this. But like I said previously, well, some changes in the tactics in Ukraine. So definitely, with the help, military help, financial help from the Western countries, they will be reconsidered, I believe. But strategically, you will see we need to look at this geopolitical competition.
Okay, let's wait and see. Professor Singer, in what ways could Trump's approach to Russia and Ukraine differ from the Biden's administration, which I think it's a long shift and a long way to go?
Yeah, it's pretty clear in his campaign at MAGA, Make America Great Again. They asked Trump to stop, funding that war in Ukraine and use that fund to support, the U.S. families here, rather than just to send that defense budget or that aid to Ukraine. As I said, the Americans really, they had long planned since Bill Clinton in history. They were interested in make that division between Ukraine and Russia. As we know, that Ukraine and Russia is just one nation. In terms of language, in terms of ethnicity, of course they are one nation, but that kind of gap between Russia and Ukraine, and that really is scary, Russia or threat Russia, that NATO is gonna to move close to its border. Of course, it's gonna to make Putin annoy
Dr.
very
Ashraf,
much.
sorry to interrupt you in this context, but if Russia and Ukraine, as we all know, are one country, why don't they sit together on one table and solve and resolve their problems instead of going into a big war with international partners and international allies that is making it even worse?
Yeah, it's retaking, Ukraine and our other countries. They were part of the Soviet Union in the past. This is the Putin dream. To bring these guys back. But it seems to me like when these guys, did decide, like in 1991 or 92, if I'm correct, to be like a sovereign country or independent country, and we got that, and the international community approved that. So this is why now the conditions of peace, either from Ukraine side or from Russian side or from American side. So the Ukraine, must say, okay, I need to get my territories, back to the create that level of integrity between the Ukraine and its territories. Of course, Putin, as a nuclear country, as a big guy compared to Ukraine, of course, will not accept that kind of, bring or give that territory back to Ukraine. And Ukraine really decide, to invade and took part of Russia. And this is really big. So in future negotiation, what you are expecting, tit for tat. So this is what the NATO policy, what the America, at the invisible hand, or the what we call, the powerful state in DC. They need to keep that war on, the war of attritions, exhaust Russia, to let Russia not really think to be as a threat to Europe and not as a threat of the United States. Need to bring Russia as a part of the West, to just to front or contain China. So keeping that war, till one guy, he said, okay, I'm back off. I'm okay. I can't really pursue this war. And it seems to me Ukraine will get fund not only from America, it will get from the West, from the NATO, and NATO will take care of that war with Russia. And unfortunately, this is not a pleasant picture for the future of international politics in Europe
Okay.
or between Russia and Ukraine.
Dr. Ashraf Singer, of course, we thank you very much. And now, final answer in 10 seconds because I have to wrap up. Dr. Olga, what particular fears does Russia expect from Ukraine concerning the outcomes of this meeting? In 10 seconds, please.
Well, I do not believe we're talking about Ukraine as a sovereign country, because it lost its sovereignty. It doesn't make any own decisions, because, well, in Russia's position it's very clear. So, and in this case, what we would expect, that Russia already achieved its aims in its foreign policy, and Russia promotes its foreign policy interests in a way it can, in a way it's supposed to do. So, in this case, I believe it's already our victory.
Thank you so much, Dr. Olga Krasniak, for joining us, an international relations expert, or a professor of international relations at National University. Dr. Ashraf Singer, our dear guest, thank you very much for joining us, professor, of course, at California University. Always a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you very much for your valuable knowledge and your insights.